Yeah. Hi guys, good morning. In the last class, we discussed about what are the annotations we are using in the Spring Boot, how to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean, how to specify scope of the bean, how to create a bean object, how to perform auto wiring by using by name, by using by type, what is a constructor injection, what is a setter injection, and what is field injection we discussed. So here in the Spring Boot, there is no XML configuration. Everything will be represented in the form of annotations. So to represent one Java class as a Spring Bean, we are using component. For the component, the default scope will be singleton. If you want to customize the scope of the bean, we need to go for @scope annotation. And here there is an annotation called @configuration. If you want to represent one Java class as a configuration class, then we will go for @configuration annotation. So this is the replacement for XML. Earlier we will use XML for the configuration. Now we are using Java class for the configuration. Next one, @bean. @bean is a method level annotation. So if you don't want IOC container to create the object, then you can write the method to create the object on your own. That method will have @bean annotation. Auto wiring. To perform dependency injection, we are using auto wide annotation. This auto wide annotation we can use at the class level or cannot use at the class level. Can I use this annotation at the class level or I cannot use at the class level? No. You can use at the setter method level. You can use at the constructor level. You can use at the field level. Auto wiring we can perform at 3 places. And next one, qualifier. What is the purpose of qualifier annotation? When you want to perform auto wiring with the name of the bean, if you want to identify your dependent object based on the bean name, then you will go for qualifier. If you go for by type, there is a chance of getting ambiguity. To resolve the ambiguity problem, we will make one bean as a primary bean. Next one, service is available, repository, controller, REST controller. By using service also, we can make our Java class as a Spring Bean. By using repository also, we can make the Java class as a Spring Bean. Component, service, repository, 3 annotations are available for the same purpose. Next one, controller annotation is available, REST controller is available. When you are going for Spring Web MVC development, when you go for Spring Web MVC development, if you want to develop web application with the user interface, then we will use controller. Controller will handle the request and response. It is something like a servlet. Controller is something like a servlet which will take the request and which will provide the response. Next one, if you want to develop a distributed application, only my backend application, business logic will be available. It will take JSON data as a input. It will provide JSON data as a output. There is no UI. My application will not contain any user interface. That is called REST API. In order to develop such kind of REST APIs, we will go for REST controller. Very famous question. What is the difference between controller and REST controller? Controller is used to develop web application. REST controller is used to develop distributed application. Distributed application nothing but REST API. Only business logic will be available. Presentation logic will not be available in that. Good. Fine. Have you done any analysis on this question? Component versus service versus repository. What is the purpose of these 3 annotations? Same. To represent our Java class as a Spring Bean. Then what is the difference between component, service, repository? Any difference is there? No difference. That means you have not analyzed. You did not research. When there is no difference, what is the use of 3 annotations for the same purpose? Some difference will be there, right? What is that difference? service and repository are the specialized annotations of the component. Okay, more readability purpose. So still you have not done the reset. Do that and let me know. What is the difference between component, service and repository? Now we are going to, I will explain that. First you try to find the answer for that. I will tell you that answer. Next one, let us go for banner in Spring Boot. Okay, when we are running the boot application, by default Spring logo is printing on the console. That logo is called banner in the Spring Boot. So right click, run as boot application. So when you run the boot application, you can see on the console the log messages are printing. Here if you see, the Spring logo is printing. This logo is called banner in the Spring Boot. Spring Boot banner, logo printing on the console. Logo printing on the console is called as banner. So banner having three modes. Banner having three modes, guys. There are three modes available for the banner. First one is console, which is default mode. If you don't set any mode, by default banner will be printed on the console. Second one is log mode. Third one is off mode is available. Okay, so banner nothing but the logo which is printing on the console. Whenever you run boot application, a logo is printing on the console. That logo is called banner in the Spring Boot. Spring Boot banner having three modes. One is called console, second one is log, third one is off. So when you don't set any mode, by default banner is printing on the console. If you set mode as a log, it will print on the log file. When you implement logging for the application, log messages will be generated in the log file. In that log file, banner also will be printed. If you go to off mode, banner will not be printed. Go to properties file. How to set that? Spring.banner.mode. Spring.main.banner.mode. Main.banner.mode is equal to off. So if you set this mode, then banner will not be printed. Run as boot application. Now you see application is executed, but banner is not printed. Application executed, but banner is not printed. But sometimes I don't want to go for this banner. I want to print my project name as a banner text. I want to print my company name as a banner text. I will show you that. Think somewhere. There is a jar file is available with a name called Jipkin server.jar. Let me show you that. Java space -jar Jipkin jar file. I'm running Jipkin jar file. When I run the Jipkin jar file, what happened? It is also a Spring Boot project. Spring logo is printing or Jipkin logo is printing. Jipkin logo is printing. That means, can I say they have customized banner? Can we say they have customized banner? Yes. So in the project, people will customize banner. So they will print their project name as a banner text, or they will print company name as a banner text. Now, if you don't customize, then by default, Spring logo is printing as a banner text. Now, I want to print my project name as a banner text. I don't want to go with the default banner text. For this, you need to create one file with a name called banner.txt. Create one file with a name called banner.txt. In this txt, whatever the data you write, that data will be printed as a banner text. Now, I'm writing normal text, plain text. Now, if you see, the plain text is printing. The plain text is printing. Now, I want to print this plain text. I don't want to print this plain text. I want to print the text in the ASCII format. I want to print the text in the ASCII format. So go to Google, generate ASCII text. Generate ASCII text banner. Now, text to ASCII code converter. Okay. Now, you write your text and convert it to ASCII. 1 minute. Text to ASCII art generator. Let me go to this website. Yeah. Now you type something, Java. Now if you type like this, it is giving in the ASCII art format. Suppose if you want to display the company name, I'm giving like this. Now just select this and copy this text. Copy this text and keep in the banner.txt file. Now when I run my application, boot is going to check banner.txt file is available or not. Now you see earlier Spring logo is printing as a banner text. Now Ashoka it is printing as a banner text. How we are customizing that banner text? How we are customizing the banner text? We can customize banner text using banner.txt file. Where we need to create that file? Inside the resources folder. To generate the banner text, we are using one URL, guys. This is the URL. If you go to this URL, you can generate banner text for your project. Okay, whatever the text you want, you type. Suppose I am developing IRCTC application. Like this, I can type the text. It will convert into ASCII art format. You select this and keep that in the banner.txt file. So when we run our boot application, first it will check what is the mode of the banner. First it will check what is the mode of the banner. If the banner mode is off, what is the meaning of that? No need to print the banner. If the banner mode is off, you no need to print the banner. If the banner mode is not off, then it will check, is there any banner.txt file available? If the banner.txt file available, it will load the content of that file and it will print that content based on the mode. If you don't set the mode, by default it will take as a console. It will print on the console. If you set the mode as a log, when the project is having a logging, a log file will be created to store the data. So in that log file, our banner will be printed, right? Banner in the Spring Boot. When we run the boot application, a logo is printing on the console. That logo is called banner. Banner having 3 modes. Console is the default mode. Log available, off available. Off means banner will not print. We can customize banner text using banner.txt file. The location, we need to keep this file in the resources folder. SRC main resources. We can generate the banner text using below URL. We can generate banner text in using below URL. Whatever you want as a banner text, you can convert that into ASCII art format by using this URL. Clear? Very simple. Next one. We have another concept called runners in the Spring Boot. We have another concept called runners in Spring Boot. Okay. What is runner? Runners will be executed by run method. Runners will be executed by run method. So we have already seen run method. It is doing lot of work. It is identifying the time taking by our application. It is loading bootstrap context. It is loading auto configuration classes. It is starting listeners required for the application. It is printing banner. It is creating IOC container. It is preparing the IOC container and it is calling runners. Runners calling is the last step of the run method. Once runners got executed, run method will return IOC container object as a return type. The run method return type is configurable application context. Runners will be executed by run method in Spring Boot. Now the question is, what is a runner? Why we need to go for runner? So runners are used to execute logic only one time when the application is started. Runners are used to execute the logic only one time when the application is started. Let us take a simple example to understand that. Now, guys, in my application database, for my application database is available DB. Inside this database, there is a table called country table is available. There is a table called country table. All the country codes, country names available in the table. In my application, there are multiple pages available where I need to display phone number field with the country code and the country name. Okay, my application contains multiple web pages. Let me call them as page 1, page 2, page 3. Like this, there are 3 pages available. In the 3 pages, I want to display countries data. Every country having a name and a country code available. India 91, US 1, Canada 1, Australia 65. So like this, every country having different code for the phone number. Now, all the country information, all the countries information along with the country code and country name available in the database. I want to display the country codes in the drop down in my application. If you see, when you go for sign up, here country names, country codes drop down is coming. Like this, I have 3-4 pages in the project where I need to display country names and along with the country code. This information is available in the database table. This information available in the database table. So in order to fetch that information, we need to execute one database query. When the first page is loaded, make a database call to retrieve the country names to display in the drop-down. Then similarly, we have a second page also to retrieve the same data. We have third page also to retrieve the same data. So I have 3 pages to display country table data. So 3 times I need to execute same query to get the same data. If 1 lakh people accessing my application, if 1 lakh people accessing my application, 1 lakh into 3 lakh times we are going to execute same query to get the same data. Can we call it as a static data? Is it countries, everyday countries are going to change? Country codes are going to change every day? No. The data that is there in the country table is a static data. So after 2 years, after 3 years also, that data will not change. So the data which is not changing frequently is called as a static data. When the data is already static, when the data is already fixed, why we need to execute the query again and again to get the same data? Are you getting my point? So that's where in the project, we will implement cache concept. What is that? Cache. So whatever static data is available in the application, don't load that static data every time from the database. Don't load it every time from the database because it is a static data. You load that data only one time when the application is started and use the same data. You no need to execute SQL query every time to get the country's data because the data is already static. Now, in my project, there are 3 places I want the country's data. Then what I will do is, instead of getting the country's data from the database every time, in my project, I will create one cache, nothing but a map. Cache nothing but a map where I will store the data in the form of key and value. Key is a country code, value is my country name, or key is a country name, value is a country code. I will create one map. Cache means map, which I will use to store the data in the form of key and value pair. Now, how many times I need to get the data from the database to store in the cache? Every day do I need to do that, or only one time I need to do this operation? Only one time, that also when the application is executed. When the application is started, Then I need to get the data from the database table. I need to store in the cache. So our pages, our programs, whoever, which page requires the country's data, they should get the country's data from the cache. They should not get the data from the database, because database operation is always costly. Database operation is always costly. What is the meaning of costly? What is the meaning of costly? Time taking. We need to prepare the query, load the driver, get the connection, execute the query, get the result, close the connection. It will take some time. It will take some time. When you execute one time, no problem. If 1 lakh people access, 1 lakh times the query should execute. 1 lakh times the connection is required. So it will impact on performance of the application. So that's why we need to reduce number of database calls in the application. When we are developing a project, we need to reduce number of database calls in the application so that application performance will improve. If you reduce DB calls, your application performance will be improved. So to reduce number of database calls in the application, we are going to implement cache in the project. Cache is a temporary storage. Any data that we want to use frequently in the application, instead of getting from the database, store the data in the JVM only to get the data whenever we want. That is called cache. Cache is a temporary storage which is used to store frequently accessed data. My application having 3 pages. In 3 pages, I want to countries data. Countries are static. Country codes are static. When the data is static, why should I get the data every time from the database? I will get the data from the database only one time. I will store in the JVM. So when I should get the data from the database? Every time or only when the application is started? Only when the application is started. That means I want to develop a Java program which will execute only one time when the application is started. To do that, we have runners in the Spring Boot. Whenever you create a runner in the Spring Boot, that runner will execute only one time when the application is started. Are you clear? Tell me, what is a cache? Why we need to go for cache? What is a cache? Why we need to go for cache? Cache is a temporary storage to store frequently accessed data in the application. The main purpose of the cache to reduce number of database calls from the application. Why we need to reduce database calls from the application? Database call is a costly operation. If you reduce the database call, application performance will be improved. How to improve that performance? By using cache. Where the cache will be available? JVM. Where our program will be available? JVM. Our program can access the data from the cache easily instead of accessing from the database. Now, to load the data to the cache, I'm going to create one runner in the Spring Boot. I'm going to create one runner class in the Spring Boot. Runner class will execute the query, will get the data from the database, will store the data in the cache. The remaining programs, whichever needs the data, they will get the data from the cache memory. How many times we will store the data in the cache? Multiple every day or only one time? When the application started, cache should be ready so that people can access the data from the cache. Are you clear? Good. Runners in the Spring Boot. Runners will be executed by run method in the Spring Boot. Runners will execute only one time when the application starts. After IOC container created, after dependency injection completed, once everything is completed, finishing touch of the run method is called the runners. Runners will execute only one time when the application starts. In Spring Boot, we have two types of runners. In Boot, we have two types of runners. One is called application runner. Second one is command line runner. One is application runner. Second one is command line runner. These two are functional interfaces in the Spring Boot. Application runner, command line runner are functional interfaces in the Spring Boot. What is the meaning of a functional interface? What is the meaning of a functional interface? Functional interface means the interface which contains only one abstract method. The interface which contains only one abstract method is called as a functional interface. Now, application runner having run method with some parameters. Command line runner also having run method with some parameter. Okay, so we have two types of runners in the Spring Boot. One is called as application runner. Second one is called command line runner. Runners will be executed by run method. Runners will execute only one time when the application starts. Run method is calling them. Command line runner and application runner. Let me create a project. File new Spring Starter project. Guys, I have not shared the code as of now. Able to practice. Auto wiring, dependency injection. Is it working? Still anybody not able to do? Still anyone who is not able to practice boot application? We are still understanding fundamentals of the boot. Right? What is the Spring Boot? How to create a project by using Spring Boot? How to get the IOC object? How to perform dependency injection, auto wiring, qualifier, primary? We are still in the basics of the boot. Okay, component scanning, all that part we understood. Anybody stuck with problems, unable to practice because I have not given the code? Anybody is not able to practice? Any exceptions? Anybody facing? Anybody got stuck with the practice? Online students? At the rate primary is a little confusion. When you have more than one bean eligible for the auto wiring with the by type, so to specify which bean to be injected, we will use the primary annotation. There is no confusion. So if when we are going for dependency injection by name or by type, mostly we'll go for by type. When you go for by type, it will identify the bean based on the data type. If the data type is a interface, interface can have multiple implementation. When multiple implementations are available, it is a confusion for the IOC container to perform dependency injection. To avoid that confusion, we will specify one bean as a primary. So that bean will be injected into our target class. Right. Any other questions, anyone?
Then what is the difference between qualifier and primary, sir?
Qualifier and primary difference. Qualifier is used to identify the dependent bean based on the bean name. Primary means we are fixing this is the bean that should be injected. Qualifier means we are telling that identify the bean with the given name. If the bean name is matching with that qualifier name, then that is the dependent. Primary means no need to check any name. You directly inject this bean into target.
Okay. Okay. We use by type, by name,
or by type. When you are working with by name to identify the dependent bean, you can go for qualifier. If you are using by type to resolve the ambiguity, we will go for primary.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Ashok, if we have a multiple classes, if we are providing the primary, it will inject that bean. If we are the multiple class, if we are specifying multiple primaries, then
no, that
again
is
we'll
ambiguity.
get ambiguity problem.
Right. You should not do that. If you specify @primary for the two beans, again ambiguity problem. Always
Yes,
there should be only one primary bean in the project.
If that situation, how will we resolve that one? So
You-
to specify
there is no
to I.
solution for that, sir. You need to remove the primary.
Okay. Yeah.
There is no solution.
Thank.
You need to remove primary.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, sir.
Remaining students, is clear everything as of now, whatever we learned. Almost we are done with boot basics. Component service difference. I asked you to analyze, research in the internet, find the solution. I will tell you the solution. If a interface has multiple implementations and I want to inject the dependency in the runtime according to user preference, how to achieve this? So in the runtime, injecting the object, that's not possible. In the runtime, injecting the object is not possible. One thing we can do is, you can get the dependent object based on the user choice by using interface injection. There is a concept called interface injection. We will understand that. Okay. Next question. Balchandra, for your question, answer is interface injection. So that we have not covered as of now.
Ashok, one more doubt. We have an interface. We have a multiple implementation classes will be there, no? So
Right.
in that situation, if we are injecting with the interface name, so we can call it as that implementation classes.
Correct.
But we have a multiple implementation. How will be
That
it
is
will
what,
get
sir.
a ambiguity problem?
Yeah, yes, definitely. When you have interface with multiple implementations, with the by type, ambiguity problem will come. That's why you need to specify bean name with the qualifier or primary annotation.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So we discussed about banner in the Spring Boot. What is the banner in the Spring Boot? What is the banner in the Spring Boot? Which is used to print logo on the console. Can we stop the banner? How? By setting banner.mode as off. So how to customize the banner? Spring.main. Banner mode is equal to off to stop it. How to customize it? We need to create banner.txt file. So it will give the priority for banner.txt. In the project, if banner.txt not available, then it will take the default Spring logo as a banner. What is the mode is console. It will print on the banner text will print on the console. Mode is a log. What is the meaning of banner mode is a log? What is the banner mode is a log? When we implement logging in the project, banner will be printed on the log file. Okay. Next one, we are talking about runner in the Spring Boot. What is the runner in the Spring Boot? What is the runner in the Spring Boot? Come on, guys. Runner is used to execute the logic only one time when the application started. How many types of runners we have? Two types of runners we have. One is called application runner. Second one is called command line runner. Where we will use runner in the project? Where we will use runner in the project? Mostly to load the data into cache memory, we will use runners. What is the cache? Static data. Any data which is static in the application will maintain in the cache. What is the benefit? What is the benefit with the cache? What is the benefit with the cache? We can reduce number of database calls in the application so that performance will be improved. Okay, good. Let me create boot application, runners app, start class is available. Just run this, run as boot app. Now you see the console, application started, banner is printed and is giving some messages also. It has taken 0.61 seconds to run this application. It is a simple standalone boot application. Now, so we know what is this start class. It is the entry point for boot application execution. One annotation is available. and we are calling run method. So this annotation is equal to three annotations: configuration, auto configuration, component scan. What is component scan? What is a component scan? The process of identifying Spring Bean classes available in the project. Package naming convention is very important when you go for component scan. Can we configure more than one base package? Yes, we are by writing component scan. What is auto configuration? What is auto configuration in the Spring Boot? It is going to identify configuration required for the project based on the form starter, and it will provide that configuration. Okay. Next one, @boot configuration. What is the meaning of @boot configuration? Replacement of the XML. Any beans that you want to customize, you will do that by using configuration class. So to represent Java class as a configuration class, we will use @configuration annotation. What is the run method in the Spring Boot? What is run method in the Spring Boot? Run method is doing lot of actions, right? Can you tell me what is happening inside the run method? It will start IOC container. It will print the banners. It will prepare the environment, and it will call the runner. Calling the runners is the last step in the run method. And what is the return type of the run method? Run method is going to return IOC container, which is a configurable application context. Which class will be used by run method to start the IOC container? Which class will use by run method to start the IOC? Depends on the form starter. If I use just boot starter, what is the class name it is going to use? Annotation config application context. If I use a web starter, annotation config web server application context. If I use a webflux, annotation config reactive application context. There are three different classes available. Based on the form starter you add, it will identify the class to start the IOC container. How to get the object from the IOC container? By using context.getBean. How many objects will be created for the class by IOC? Depends on the scope. So what are the scopes available? Singleton and prototype. Singleton means only one object will be created, that is by default. How to change the scope of the bean? By using @scope annotation. What is lazy loading and eager loading in the IOC container? When the IOC started for singleton beans, immediately objects will be created. For the prototype scopes, when you call getBean method, then only the object creation will happen. What is auto wiring? The process of identify and inject dependent object. The process of identifying and injecting dependent object into target class is called auto wiring. So by name, by type. By name means name of the variable should match with the bean name. By type means data type of the variable should match with the bean class. So when we go for auto wiring, at three places we can do that: setter, constructor, field. When I go for field injection, what will happen? When I go for field injection, what will happen? IOC container will use reflection API in order to inject the dependent object into target object. Recommended or not recommended? Not recommended, but it is easy to use. Not recommended, but easy to use. Can we inject multiple dependent classes into one target class? Can we inject multiple dependents into one target? Yesterday we have done that, right? In the user service, we injected password service, user DAO, and email service. One target can have multiple dependents also. Fine. Let me create a runner. I have created a class called my app runner. If you want to make it as a runner in the Spring Boot, then you need to implement one interface called application runner. You need to implement the interface called application runner. What is method available? Run method. System.out.println my app runner run method. If this message is printed, then we can say runner is executed in our application. Now run this project. Can you see? Is that runner executed or the runner is not executed? Runner is not executed. Okay, go here, because this is a simple Java class. This is a simple Java class. I want to make it as a Spring Bean. I want to make it as a Spring Bean. I'm writing @component annotation. When I write @component annotation, this class will become a Spring Bean, and this class is implementing application runner. Now go to this run as boot application. Am I calling the runner or it is getting called automatically? Am I calling the runner? I am not calling the runner. I am not calling. Who is calling? IOC container by using run method. Run method is calling the runner. Can we create multiple runners in the project? Yes. My app runner is available and I'm going to create my CMD runner. My app runner, my CMD runner. I want to implement a interface called command line runner. How many types of runners? Two types of runners, application runner and a command line runner. I want to make this class also as a Spring Bean. For that, I'm using @component. So total, there are two runners available in the application. One is my app runner. Second one is CMD runner. Run the project. Now you see, app runner is executed, CMD runner is executed. Observe both classes and tell me what is the difference. Application runner is available, which is a functional interface which contains only one method. Functional interface which contains only one method. Similarly, if you go to command line runner, this is also functional interface, contains only one method. So see, what is the difference between application runner run method, command line runner run method? The only difference is parameters, method parameter. Here, application arguments available, source argument, optional arguments, non-optional arguments are available. Whereas CMD runner will take only our command line arguments. So whatever the data that we send as an input for the main method by using CMD arguments, that data will go to command line runner. For application runner, not only command line arguments, you can send some application arguments like JVM arguments also you can supply for that. So you can supply more inputs for your method when you go for application runner. When you go for command line runner, only command line arguments we can supply for the command line runner. We have two types of runners in the Spring Boot. One is application runner, second one is command line runner. In order to develop our own runners in the boot application, we need to create a class by implementing that interface. We need to create a class by implementing that interface. Are you guys clear with my point? Yes, runners in the Spring Boot. Now, when I create this runner class, am I getting that object? Am I calling that runner anywhere? No, let me show you. Let me show you. Runner class is available. Main Java runner, my app runner, my CMD runner. My app runner is available. My CMD runner is available. Okay. So when I go for this runner class, I'm implementing this runner. I'm overriding this run method. I'm overriding run method. I'm writing just one SOP statement. I'm writing just one SOP statement. Now, in this method, can I write the logic to get the data from the database? Can I store into one cache? Yes or no? If I write the logic to communicate with the database to get the data, how many times that logic will execute? Only one time that will execute. So in your project, or else I have a requirement. When my application is started, I want to send one email to my manager. When my application is started, I want to send one email to my manager. Can I do that by using runner? So runner, whatever the logic you write in the runner will execute only one time. So I will create a runner class by implementing either application runner or command line runner. Inside that I can override run method, and inside the run method I can write the logic. So which will execute only one time when my project is started. I no need to get the runner object. I no need to call the run method. It will be taken care by our start class run method. Whenever you run this start class, application.run method is executing. Go inside the run method. Go inside the run method. Now come here. What is this? Call the runners. Go to here. What it is checking? First priority will be given to application runner. Then the second priority will be given to command line runner. So it is going to get all the runners available in the application, and it will call application runner first. You can create multiple application runners also. You can create multiple command line runners also. They will be executed. When we are calling these runners, this is the method which will be calling the runner. So it will pass only source arguments for the command line runner. It will pass all the arguments for the application runner. So command line runner means only command line arguments will be available. Application runner means application arguments will be available. Source args, option names, right? Any input that you want to supply for the JVM, those things also we can access by using application runner. Are you clear? Good. Any questions, anyone, on the runners in the Spring Boot? Anybody having any questions on runners in the Spring Boot?
Application arguments, we didn't get, sir. What is exactly?
Sir, whatever the arguments, in general, we are going to run the Java program. For example, Java C demo.java is available. It is used to compile the Java program. Java space demo. For this, can I pass some values like this?
Yes.
What are these values?
Command line arguments.
These are command line arguments. Okay. Along with this, when we are running the Java application, we can pass -xms 1024, -xmx 2048. Okay. Then I will run demo. I will run some values like this.
It's a memory configuration.
Related. These are the VM arguments. Okay. So when you go for command line runner, your program will take only these values. When you go for application runner, it will take these values also as a input. Okay. So VM arguments also we can access by using application runner. Only command line arguments we can access by using command line runner. Got it?
Got it.
Good. Good. So with this, we got the clarity on what is banner in the Spring Boot and what is runner in the Spring Boot. Next one, there is a concept called bean life cycle. What is that? Bean life cycle.
Sir, one more question. I mean, can we have a multiple classes for application runners by implementing application runner interface?
Yes.
Okay, sir.
You can create 3 application runner classes. You can create 3 command line runner classes also. You can have multiple application runner classes as well as multiple command line runner classes also in the project. Next one, bean life cycle. Already in the Java, you have seen what is thread life cycle. You have seen what is servlet life cycle and what is JSP life cycle. Similarly, we need to understand Spring Bean life cycle. Can you tell me what is the thread life cycle in the Java? Can you tell me what is the thread life cycle in the Java? So from thread starting point to ending point is called as a thread life cycle. New state, runnable state, running state, sleep state, dead state will be available. Similarly, servlet also having a life cycle. What is the servlet life cycle? Init method, service method, destroy method. When the first request comes, init method will be called. For every request, service method will be called. When the servlet is removed from the container, then destroy method will be called. So JSP also having a life cycle. When the request comes, JSP will be converted to servlet, JSP init, JSP service, JSP destroy. Like that, we have several methods. Similarly, Spring Bean also having a life cycle. First of all, what is a Spring Bean? What is a Spring Bean, guys? The Java class which is managed by IOC container. Guys, some online students yesterday sent you a message. Sir, daily you are taking a live class or is it a recorded session? Because they're seeing different time in the system. They're thinking that it is a recorded session. No, in this system, there is some issue with this date. Even if I reset, it is not coming as expected. So by looking at this calendar, they are thinking that it is a recorded session. No, it is not a recorded session. It is a live session. So I have changed this 2 times, but still it is not coming correctly. What date it is showing? 27th. Kalka date, hai na? It is showing yesterday's date. So don't.
Previous time, I think.
It is previous time, guys. Don't check this calendar. Don't look into this.
It's a battery issue.
Not battery issue, maybe some system config setting issue. I have done the change, but still it is not. If I restart the system, it is going back. Good. So we are trying to understand what is Spring Bean. So can you tell me what is the Spring Bean? The Java class which is managed by IOC container. Any Java class which is managed by IOC container. Now, so if you see, we have one Spring Bean class. Okay, we have one Java class. I'm representing this Java class as a Spring Bean by using @component annotation. Or I can use service, I can use repository also. I am making this class as a component class by using @component annotation. Then here we are starting IOC container. Okay, we are starting IOC container. IOC starts. IOC starts, IOC close. IOC will be starting here. Whenever we execute this application, it is starting from the main method. Inside the main method, we are calling the run method. Whenever we call the run method, IOC container will be started and it will return the reference of the IOC container. We can store that in the context object. We can store that into context object. Now, after this, I'm not writing any logic here. I'm just executing my program. So after this line is completed, is there any logic available to execute? No. When there is no logic available to execute, main method will be terminated. When the main method is terminated, JVM also will shut down. If the main method execution got completed, our JVM will shut down. When the JVM is shut down, IOC container also will be stopped. IOC container will be stopped. IOC is also one object which is creating in the JVM. If JVM is stopped, then what about IOC? If JVM is stopped, then what about IOC? There is no IOC. Okay. So here, if you want, you can write like this: context dot close. Context dot close. So all of sudden, if JVM is shut down, IOC container will not remove the objects in the container. Our Java class is managing by IOC container. The Java class which is managing by IOC container is called Spring Bean. Here, whenever we call the run method, IOC container will start. When the IOC container is started, object will be created for our class. If it is a singleton, object will be created for our class. Whenever you write context dot close, IOC container will be stopped. Right? Object creation, object destruction will be taken care by IOC container. Whenever I call the run method, my IOC container will start. That IOC container will create object for the Spring Bean. When I call context.close method, IOC container will be deleted. Before deleting the IOC container, it will remove all the objects which are created by the IOC. So object creation, object removal will be taken care by IOC container. So that means we can say the object life cycle, object creation, object injection, object destruction is taken care by IOC container. So that means the life cycle of the object, the life cycle of the Spring Bean will be managed by IOC container. Servlet life cycle will be managed by servlet container. Tomcat is called as a servlet container. Okay. JSP life cycle will be managed by JSP container. So Tomcat server is available. Tomcat server is available. Inside the Tomcat, we have servlet container and JSP container. When you send a request for the servlet, servlet life cycle will be managed by servlet container. So inside the Tomcat server, servlet container is available. Similarly, when we are working with the Spring application or Spring Boot application, Bean classes are available. We are creating the Java classes. Those Java classes are managing by IOC container. The Java class which is managed by the IOC is called as a Spring Bean. So who will create our object for the class? Who will create object for our class? Who will manage our object? Who will remove our object from the container? Everything will be taken care by IOC container. That means I can say my Bean life cycle will be managed by IOC container. Bean life cycle will be managed by IOC container. When the Bean life cycle managing by the IOC container, I want to execute some life cycle methods. Okay. When the object is created, I want to execute some logic. Before object is deleting by the IOC container, I want to execute some logic. Before service method, init will be executed. Before removing the servlet from the container, destroy will be executed. Similar to init method and destroy method, I want to execute some life cycle methods for my Spring Bean. I want to execute life cycle methods for Spring Bean. Two questions. What is a Spring Bean? Who will manage the life cycle of the Spring Bean? What is a Spring Bean? Who will manage life cycle of the Spring Bean? The Java class which is managed by IOC container is called Spring Bean. Who will manage life cycle of the Spring Bean? IOC container will manage life cycle of the Spring Bean. Are you clear? Good. When the IOC container is managing the life cycle, When the IOC container managing the life cycle, I want to execute some life cycle methods. When the object is created, I want to execute some functionality. Before object is removing from the container, I want to execute some functionality. So when the bean object is created, I want to get some connection from the database. When the IOC container removing my object, I want to close the connection with the database. Like that. Not only database, anything. Any logic you want to execute when the object is created, before the object is deleting. You can do that by using life cycle methods of the bean. Okay. Now let us see. I am going to create one class. Okay. Bean life cycle. New Spring Starter project. Bean life cycle. Next. No dependency. Next. Finish. Guys, people are asking about project batch date. So please give me 2 days to confirm the date, because I don't know what is the schedule, because I need to go to temple every day. So I'm unable to understand what is the schedule for the JRTP batch to start. Actually, it is supposed to start today, 27th of December, but we have not announced the date for that. I'm checking my schedule. So I will confirm the date in this week for the Java real-time project batch. So for me, 2 slots I'm getting free. Morning 9 o'clock, my batch will be completed in another 2 weeks of time. And evening 6 o'clock, my batch will be completed by this week only. Okay, so 2 slots are available. So which one is comfortable, 9 a.m. or 6 p.m.? 6 p.m. Online students, 6 p.m. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. means continuation. Okay. 6 p.m. is best. For US candidates, is 6 p.m. time zone okay? Foreign people? Yes. Okay. If I take at 9 a.m. then burden, right? Continuously 3 hours, 4 hours class will be there. Spring Boot and project immediately. We'll go with 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is okay? Okay. Only online or offline also? Offline. Because then today or tomorrow, we'll confirm the date for that. So time will go with the 6 p.m. Yeah. Yeah, even I'm feeling the same. If it is a continuous class, it is a burden, because the concepts we are learning in the Spring Boot, the concepts we are learning in the project may be difficult to understand, right? Okay. We are trying to understand how to execute lifecycle methods in the Spring Bean. Who will manage lifecycle methods of the Spring Bean? IOC container will manage lifecycle methods of the Spring Bean. So when bean object is created, I want to execute some logic. When the bean object is deleted, I want to execute some logic. For that, we will go for lifecycle methods of Spring Bean. Okay, cool. I will create one Java class here. Let me take new class, something like some car. I'm keeping this in the beans package, right? Public void start or drive something. System.out.println. System.out.println. I'm driving car. Now I want to represent this as a Spring Bean. We have component. At the rate component annotation is available. So we are representing our Java class as a Spring Bean class, which is having drive method. Now IOC container is available. We are starting that IOC using run method. Run method is returning the reference of IOC. We are having IOC object now. So let's go with context dot get bean of car dot class. Context dot get bean of car dot class. No, method I want to get. Okay, sorry. I'm using start class of the previous project. Context object I have taken. Guys, to avoid such kind of mistakes, when you are working on one project, now I have created car class in the 6th project. I'm using start class of the 5th project. So that is a mistake, right? So to avoid this problem, in which project you are working on, right click, close unrelated projects. Okay, all the previous projects will be closed, only this present project will be open, so that we don't do that mistake. Now car class is available. This is a Spring Bean which is having drive method. Now I'm getting reference of the IOC from the run method. By using this, I want to call get bean method. What is that? Context dot get bean of car dot class bean dot drive. Before my main method is getting completed, I want to close IOC container. What is the meaning of closing IOC container? I'm destroying the IOC container. When I destroy the IOC container, it will destroy all the beans which are created by the IOC. Now execute, run as boot application. IOC container started, car object is created. I'm able to drive the car. Now the requirement is, when the car object is created, I want to start the car. When the car object is removing, I want to stop the car. So when the car object is created, I want to execute one life cycle method. When the car object is removing from the IOC container, I want to execute one life cycle method. Similarly, init method and destroy method. Servlet life cycle, init method, service method, destroy method. Here, I want to start the car, I want to drive the car, I want to stop the car. When I should start? When the IOC container created object for the car, then I want to start it. When the IOC container deleting the car object from the container, I want to stop the car. I want to execute them as life cycle methods. I want to execute them as life cycle methods. Perfect. So go here. I want to execute life cycle methods. Life cycle methods we can execute in 3 ways, guys. By using XML also, you can execute life cycle methods. By using programmatic approach, you can execute life cycle methods. By using annotation also, you can execute life cycle method. So now I want to tell IOC container to call the method when the object is created. For this, we are going for implements initializing bean. What is that? Implements initializing bean. Initializing bean having a method called after properties set system.out.println car starting. Car starting. So if you want to execute a init method, when the bean object is created, if you want to execute some logic of your bean, then you need to implement one interface called initializing bean interface. That interface is also functional interface which contains only one method, that is called after properties set method. When after properties set method will be executed after bean object is created. I want to execute destroy method when the bean object is removing from the container. For this, we need to implement one more bean called disposable bean. Disposable bean also functional interface which is having destroy method system.out.println car stopped. Car stop. Now, so this is equal to init method. This is equal to destroy method. When the bean object is created, this method will be executed. When the bean object is removed from the container, this method will be executed. Like this, we can achieve bean lifecycle methods execution. This is the programmatic approach. This is programmatic approach. When you want to implement some logic, when you want to execute some logic, when the bean object is created, then go for initializing bean interface. When you implement initializing bean, we are overriding after properties set method. So when the bean object is created, that method will be called disposable bean. When you want to execute some logic, when the bean object is removed from the container, then disposable bean which is providing destroy method. Now, so I have created car class which is implementing initializing bean and disposable bean. Is it mandatory to implement two interfaces? I don't want any init method. Then I don't need to implement first interface. I don't want any destroy method. Then I don't need to implement second interface. If I want init and destroy both, then only I will implement initializing bean as well as disposable bean. Whenever you implement a interface, you need to override methods of the interface. Whenever you implement a interface, you need to override methods of the interface. Okay. Run this, run as boot application. Now you see, run as boot application. What happened? Car started. Are we calling those methods? Who is calling? IOC container. When the object is created, after property set method is called. When the object is removing from the, before removing the object, destroy method will be called. So like this, we can achieve bean life cycle in the Spring by implementing initializing bean and disposable bean. Initializing bean having after properties set. Disposable bean is having destroy. If I don't override the disposable bean, then this is not available. Only init method will be executed. If you want both init and destroy, you need to implement two interfaces. So in your bean class, when the object is created, before object is removing, if you want to execute some logic, then you can go for initializing bean and disposable bean. These are used to execute lifecycle methods of our Spring Bean class. Okay, so lifecycle methods we can execute in three ways. One is XML approach, second one is programmatic approach, third one is annotation approach. Which approach we have seen now? Programmatic approach we have seen. Got it? So we have XML. XML means in the Spring XML will be available. When it comes to Spring Boot, any XML? No XML. So here we can go for either programmatic approach or annotation approach. Okay. When you go for annotation approach, there are two annotations available. One is post construct, another one is pre-destroy. What are the annotations available? One is post construct, another one is pre-destroy. Any method you want to execute after object is constructed, then you can use post construct. Any method you want to execute before removing the object, you can go for pre-destroy. So if you go for post construct pre-destroy, then you no need to implement these interfaces. You don't need to implement these interfaces. Directly, we can write annotation called post construct. What is that? Post construct and pre-destroy annotations will be available. Then you can use your own method names. You can use your own method names. You no need to implement this interface also. So you can write a bean. In that bean, you can write M1 method with the post construct, M2 method with the pre-destroy. What is the meaning of post construct and pre-destroy? Post construct is like a init method which will execute when the bean object is created. Pre-destroy is like a destroy method which will execute before deleting our object from the container. Like this, lifecycle methods you can execute in programmatic approach as well as in the annotation approach also. If I go for annotation approach, let me create new class some motor. Right. I want to make it as a spring bean. Sorry. @ component. Public void init. Is it mandatory to write a particular name for the method? No, we can write any name for the method. I want to represent this method as a init method. What is the annotation? Post construct. Pre-destroy. That's it. So when this post construct pre-destroy will execute, motor, init method and destroy method. Post construct pre-destroy. When I go for post construct and pre-destroy, do I need to implement the interfaces? Now you see here. You see this motor init method is executed, motor destroy method also executed. So you can implement lifecycle methods programmatic approach like this. You need to implement initializing bean and disposable bean. If you don't want to implement the interfaces, you can use annotation. You can write any method name. I can write the method name as M1 and M2 also. Post construct means it will execute when the object is created for the bean. Pre-destroy will be executed when the object is removed from the container. Before removing the object, pre-destroy will execute. You see the meaning, plain English. Post construct. That means after constructing the bean object, method will execute. Pre-destroy. Before destroying the object, method will be executed. So lifecycle methods you can execute using XML, using programmatic approach, using annotation approach also. So this is about bean life cycle. To execute method after bean object creation. To execute method after bean object creation. Pre-destroy. To execute method before destroying bean object. Post construct and pre-destroy. Annotation based lifecycle method. It is programmatic based lifecycle approach. Yeah. So today we learned 3 concepts, guys. Banner, runner, and bean lifecycle methods in the Spring Boot. Okay. I will upload these notes. I think already yesterday I have given the notes for the complete Spring Boot. I no need to upload this again. I think so. Check it. Yeah. For the Spring Boot, I have given the complete notes here. Bean life cycle. Yes, I have given. So one is interface approach, programmatic approach. Another one is annotation approach. I have given that. Now, so I have given setter, constructor, field injection also. Auto wiring with field injection, auto wiring with constructor. So whatever the topics that we discussed, all the topics already mentioned in the complete notes of the Spring Boot. Okay. So please do the practice. of all these topics before coming to tomorrow's session. Got my point? Good. Fine, guys. Anybody having any questions? Banner, runner, and bean life cycle. Banner is the logo that is printing on the console. Runner, to execute the logic only one time when the application is started. We can load the data to the cache by using runner in the Spring Boot. Next one, bean lifecycle. So the class which is managed by IOC container is called as a Spring Bean. Bean lifecycle will be managed by IOC container. I want to execute some lifecycle methods. When the object is created, I want to execute one method. When before removing the object from the container, I want to execute one method. For that, we can go for lifecycle methods. Lifecycle methods we can execute in two ways. One is by using programmatic approach. Second one is by using annotation approach. If you are using only Spring, XML approach is also available. If I go for programmatic approach, what are the interfaces I have to implement? Initializing bean and disposable bean. Initializing bean having a method called after properties set. Disposable bean having a method called destroy. If I go for annotation approach, what annotations available? What annotations available? Post construct is available and pre-destroy is also available. What is the meaning of post construct and pre-destroy? Post construct will be used at the method level. That method will be executed when the bean object is created. Pre-destroy also will be used at the method level. That method will be executed before removing the object from the container. Clear? Good. Any questions? No? Fine. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Online students, any question, anyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi.
We are implementing some interfaces here, right?
Correct.
To execute some logic, but Spring is a non-invasive framework.
That's why annotation approach is there. XML approach is also there. When you say non-invasive, Spring is not 100% non-invasive because we are using @ component. That is a Spring annotation only, right?
Yeah, but we are not implementing anything explicitly to override the.
That is the reason they have given XML approach and annotation approach also. If you want to make it as a complete non-invasive, then you no need to go for interface approach, go for annotation approach.
Okay. And other question, sir. I mean, how the internal it is, auto configuration is done internally. I mean, that part when.
I have shown you. There is a file called spring.factories file. It will load the classes which are available. Based on the classes, it will provide the. That means for all these things, already the logic available in the Spring Boot starters. So they developed classes to provide this configuration. If you add web starter, they will start the server. Something like this.
Yeah. Because I have faced this question in Verizon actually. I have around 8+ years of experience in Java. So I have attended interview. I have faced this, but I am unable to answer correctly. That's why I'm asking.
Sure, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ashok.
Hello.
Yes. For runner, any real-time example?
I told you that only, right? Loading the data into the cache.
Loading the data into the cache.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything apart from loading the data in the cache?
Job scheduling will be there. Email sending will be available. I want to schedule the job when the application is started. That means scheduler concept will be there. I want to send the email when the application is started. I want to delete the staging tables data when the application is started, or I want to load some data into tables when the application is started. All these things can be implemented by using runners.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Banner and lifecycle, this thing will be used in real-time projects.
Yes, sir. Definitely. Banner, generally people will customize the banners. They don't go with the default, but it's optional.
Ashok, lifecycle is compulsory?
Not compulsory, sir. If you have a requirement, you can write it. Otherwise, you can ignore.
Okay.
If you want to execute some logic, then you do that. Otherwise, you no need to. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Guys, already. Yes, sir.
Please conduct a workshop on JDBC servlets
Sir, I am not finding time, sir.
on Sunday or Saturday.
So currently it's not possible, sir. I have taken Ayyap Mala Diksha. I'm in Diksha now.
Okay.
I can't take the workshops now because I will be busy with some puja and all the stuff daily.
Okay. How much time it will take to learn this JDBC servlets?
Sir, hardly, if you are already good in Java, JDBC you can learn in 2 hours.
Okay.
Servlets 3 hours. That's it.
Thank you, Ashok.
Sir, is Spring application is a static class?
Spring application is a class that is available in the Spring Boot, right? It is a predefined class. In
Yes,
that
sir.
class, the method, which run method is available, right? That is a static method. A class is not a static class. It is a normal Java class only. Inside that, run method is available as a static method. That's
Sir,
why we are.
then why in main method we are calling run method by Spring application if it is a
Method is a static method. Static methods we will call class name dot method name, na?
Okay, sorry, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Fine, guys. Have a great day. We'll meet again tomorrow.